Damn, what do I want to do? Can I do training mode? Oh, I can?
Okay. Our throat is lubed up and ready. So, basically, like I said, let me once again start off. So, for those who don't know, they're fine who haven't played the Final Fantasy VII original, I highly recommend it because you will get much more out of your experience playing Final Fantasy VII Remake if you play the original. The reason for this is because of the changes that they made, which I am going to rant about later. But Final Fantasy VII original, and then if you watch Final Fantasy VII Advent Children the movie, that will pretty much set you up to understand exactly why I'm so like upset and frustrated at the direction that they took with this game. Okay, so Final Fantasy VII Remake starts off very similar to the first one. You have the opening train scene with the bombing scene, and Cloud is like Mr. Cool Guy, and you have Barrett, Mr. kind of racist caricature of a black guy, and you have the three side characters. So what they did with the side characters is, so for those who don't know, Final Fantasy VII Remake is only the first in the series of remakes. They're going to be a series of remakes.
How many are there? Do you know?
We have no idea how many there are going to be. Because in Final Fantasy VII, the original, there were 3 discs, but where this ends, I believe, is not even at the end of the first disc. It ends at the end of Midgar. That's the city that the action takes place of at the beginning of the game. It is the futuristic cyberpunk city, well, the cyber industrial. It's like cyber steampunk city, basically. It's a cyberpunk industrial city, and it has a whole thing about, like, you know, class warfare and stuff like that. Like, the whole lore of the city is really great. It's run by a company called Shinra. It's like literally owned by a corporation. Like, it's governed by a corporation. So you can kind of see like where we're getting at here, right? And the corporation powers the city by sucking out the energy from the life stream, which is like the essence of all life. It's like the concept is that, like, there's this thing called the life stream, which is the fundamental essence of all life on Earth and stuff like that. And what they do is they like convert that into this thing called Mako energy, and then they use that to like power all of these industrial things. So, you know, it's similar. It's like, oh yeah, we use fossil fuels, which inherently destroy our Earth, right? It's natural, but it's horrible for the Earth and the environment, right? That's like the backdrop of Final Fantasy VII Remake. So there's a bunch of sites. So the first part of the game ends when you leave Midgar. That's what the remake ends at. And when you leave Midgar, that's probably like 10 to 20% of the original Final Fantasy VII game. So you can see that they had like a lot of fleshing out to do in order to make it like an actual game, right? In order to make that worthwhile of like an actual full game. So what they did is, first they allow you to explore other parts of Midgar, which is very sick. They like really like kind of flesh it out and let you do side quests and stuff like that, but it is still very linear. Like, you go chapter by chapter, and then there's like some side quests during each chapter and some exploring you can do in each chapter, and then once you beat the whole game, you can go back in the chapters to clear other stuff. I don't think any of the stuff is so complex or like long that like you won't complete it on your playthrough. It's really like if you're just rushing through the story, then you won't do them. But it's like pretty unlikely that you're going to be rushing through the story like that, because there's like a lot of contextual story side quests. On my back, let me stretch and get a self posture. Okay. So like if you consider that they're working with like such a small portion of the original game, there's going to be things that are either like good changes and like additions that will really flesh out the things that you didn't get to experience in the original, and there might be bad ones. Or there might be necessary changes, which are changes that are made because like certain things won't make sense with the extended like look into the world, so you just have to flesh that out a little more. And there are like bad changes, right, where it's like theme breaking, narrative breaking from the original, right? So like my view on a remake is that it should stand on its own. It should not be a game that you have had to play the originals to like understand. Right. Like effectively you are retelling the original. So like there is a whole generation of gamers that have not played Final Fantasy VII. Doesn't matter if you know the memes, doesn't matter if you know some of the major plot points, like they don't know the story and the narrative of the entire Final Fantasy VII game, like as a whole. And like, so it is your responsibility as a like to when you remake it to be telling that and keeping that intact for that new generation, so it can keep that, like, you're telling it fresh, right? You're basically saying, this is how we're going to tell this story now to you, right? We're not going to say like, oh, you're not going to assume that everybody knows everything already about this game. But what the Final Fantasy VII Remake does is it basically assumes that everyone and their mom already knows everything about all the characters, and then like the way that they develop the characters and present them skips so many steps and is like so bad and like completely ruins the narrative. So basically you have Cloud, and let's talk about Cloud, okay? Let's talk about Cloud Strife as a character. A lot of people who don't know Final Fantasy VII think Cloud is just a moody, edgy, like character. Like he's just like a little emo boy, right?
Is he like a goofball?
He is not a goofball, but he is just like, the people's perception of him are that he's just this like emo, like just kind of like antisocial guy or whatever. And the reason people think that is because Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, the movie, had certain characters in it that were featured. You're obviously featuring Cloud, you're obviously featuring Tifa, and you're obviously featuring a couple of the side characters. But in that movie, that movie is not a good movie for their character development, because it is fan service. That movie is very much so fan service because they have like character traits that like don't make any sense for what they came out of in Final Fantasy VII, the game, right? The movie canonically takes place after the game. Again, I wouldn't call the movie canonical, but it does. Okay, that's where it takes place. And they reduce these characters to really simple tropes. Again, it's like Cloud is like moody, emo, edgy boy that like just can't like, that just is like antisocial. And like Tifa's just like happy, like clings to everything about Cloud kind of character, even though she should be the poster child of strong female lead that has her own set of ideas and morals and how the world operates, and like she does not need to hang on to the words of the other people. Like these people happen to be important to her, and then she wants to protect that. Like it is not something where she is just like, oh Cloud, please solve my problems, or oh Cloud, like you're just so Cloud, like what do you think, like everything has to revolve around Cloud, I'm so worried about Cloud, all my motivations are like regarding Cloud. Like not what she's supposed to. And she is not some like, in the movie they just like make her some like kind of like, it's like, oh Cloud, like dilly dally shilly shally is like her big line. It's like, don't you remember when I said that? Like it's like, no, because you didn't say that, and it wasn't some like dumb catchphrase. Like you didn't have a dumb catchphrase, okay? Like why are you giving her some dumb catchphrase? Like she just goes like, and it's just like, yeah, like it just don't take life so seriously. It's like, don't take life so seriously. You guys like killed God. Like, what do you mean don't take it so seriously?
What could be more serious?
What could be more serious than you learning that everything you knew about how life worked wasn't true, and that there's just like one person hell bent on destroying it because he basically has the power of God, right? It's like, what do you mean don't take it seriously? And then like the end, then like the end of Advent Children is like he's back, and then it's like, oh shit, he's back, and then it's like, but in the games it's like, yeah, you fight him with your whole party, right? It's like, it's a whole fucking like 10, like, you know, multi-stage boss fight, and you're like, oh shit, like we gotta, like, you know, we really gotta pull out all the stops for this, and you don't know when it ends. And then she's just like, it's cool, let Cloud handle it. Literally, all of us are here, let's send Cloud alone to battle God this time, because that's what we do. Yeah, like that's literally what we did, just how it's supposed to work, because it's Cloud, okay? And Cloud's like, okay. And then it's like, and it's like, all right, then of course, you know, he wins. That's how the fucking movie ends, right? Like he fucking, everybody wins, everything goes back to fucking normal or whatever. But normal is like shit. Normal is absolute dog shit, where the characters, you don't give a shit about them. Like, it's just, the whole movie is just for pure eye candy. Before, like, we had, because it came out so long ago, right? Hold on, when was it? It was like 2005 or something. Oh my god, I am on the money. It is, yeah, Advent Children came in 2005. You think about 3D animation in 2005, it's like, bro, like, it was not that good. Like, Advent Children looked fucking amazing for what we had, but that was all it was. It was a fucking technical flex. The problem is, it's like they forgot what the original characters were like, since it's been so fucking long, and they were like, oh hey, this game kind of looks like Advent Children, why don't we just make the characters that were in Advent Children exactly the same way they were in Advent Children, which, if you recall, I said canonically is supposed to take place after the events of the game that we're supposed to be playing through, right? Like, they're not, like, even if it was an okay way for them to be and it made sense, it does not make sense for them to exhibit those exact character traits at the beginning of the whole fucking ordeal, right?
So it's like Cloud like an edge boy in,
yeah, so in the remake, he's just like, I'm edgy. And it's like, okay, so in the original one, and again, this is heavy spoilers for anybody, but even if I
actually don't know if I should
no, even if I spoil it for you, I still recommend playing through it, because like it will just contextualize what you're playing through, because this is from like a long-standing fan who's like had a lot to engage with in the media. I don't think Final Fantasy VII, the original, is necessarily great at conveying these things, due to the fact that it also had lots of mistranslations, right? Like, it does convey these things, and when you learn about these things and you replay the game, you're like, I can see where that's all coming from. It makes sense. Like, you can see the intent behind it, you can see like supporting evidence for it, but like on the first playthrough, you might not quite get it, and I think that's like okay. I think that's just a relic of its time. It's why it didn't necessarily age the best, but it's why it's also like a pivotal work of its time, because you can prove that these things are like true, right? So Cloud in the original, let's say the dialogue is the same, right? He's like, yeah, like, I'll do the job, but for the money. He's like, make sure you pay me, right? It's like everything's about the money, everything. He like has like no emotional connection to these people. It's like, don't you
lift off the money?
Yeah, it's like, don't you feel like that the world is crying? He's like, I don't care about that, I just want my money. It's like, okay, that's fine. And like Tifa's like, hey Cloud, in the original, in Final Fantasy original, she is, first of all, Tifa does not get that much screen time this early on in the original. And like, I understand that it's like Tifa is a very large selling point of this game. She was to me, don't get me wrong, that's like wife number one original, right? But like, Tifa did not have the screen time that she had in Final Fantasy VII Remake, that they gave her in Final Fantasy Remake for Final Fantasy VII Original, right? So like, what does that mean? It means that they had to add like so many more interactions and dialogue, where she like normally only had a couple lines, right? So it's like, in the original, the interactions between her and Cloud feel much more standoffish, considering their history, right? They talk about how they're like childhood friends, and she recommended him for this job, but she does not like handhold him or like hang out with him all the time. Like, they actually don't interact that much, and it feels very stilted. The reasoning being because she like clearly feels off put by the fact that he is like a different person now. They have not seen each other for a long time, and like he has supposedly been through an experimental super soldier program, right? And he's like very different from when she met him, right? And like, when they have the whole thing about, hey, didn't you promise me to like, you know, protect me or whatever, it's like, because that's back when Cloud is supposed to be like a little sweetheart. He's just a kid, he's just a boy, right? And she's just like a sweet little girl, and they're just like having fun, and they're like good friends. He's like, yeah, and like, I'm just gonna be a hero. Like, he has motivations, and now he's like, only money matters. Like, all this other shit, like, who cares about that other shit? Like, I don't give a shit about Shinra, like, whatever. Like, And he's like, but it's not even like that where it's like dismissive, it's just like unemotional. It's unemotional
Right.
versus like dismissive and like quote unquote like edgy emo, right? Like aesthetic. It's like fundamentally unemotional and detached. And it's like, hey, detached, emotionally detached. What does that sound like? That sounds like trauma, right? That sounds like there might be some trauma he's been through. And that sounds like something that would be a good emotional motivator that explains why he is the way he is, right? Because it's like, oh yeah, like he seems very detached, and that's strange considering that he was not previously detached and we know fuck all about like his history. And like Tifa is like, this is not right, right? So it's like, once you get that feel for it and you're like, okay, Cloud is not just some edgy emo boy, he is a person that cannot properly feel emotions or like interact with people because he's traumatized beyond the point of having regular human interaction, right? Like he is a super soldier that has like slaughtered things and people and fought on behalf of something that he doesn't believe in and been experimented on for something that he doesn't believe in, after being fed lies about becoming a hero, right? Sounds kind of familiar, but anyway, it's like, so once you learn that that's Cloud's thing, you know, he has a whole growth arc like across the rest of the game, right? Like again, not in the first 20%, but across like the rest of the Final Fantasy VII games. Like he has like, it's like a whole thing to learn Cloud's actual story, and that involves actually other characters that you're not supposed to fucking find out about in the beginning. You literally don't know that that character exists until about 60% into the story, okay? It doesn't matter that the game has existed for like 20 years. It doesn't matter because there are a whole generation of people that don't fucking know the name Zack Fair. Okay, do you know who Zack
Right.
Fair is?
I know he's from 8, right?
No, Zack
Yeah.
Fair is from Final Fantasy VII. That's exactly what I mean. You know the name, but you have no idea what
Shit,
he
I
means.
genuinely thought he was from like
Yeah,
place
you
4 or
have
something.
no idea what he means in Final Fantasy VII. And I swear to God, because they fucking show him many times in the Final Fantasy VII remake, and I lost it every single time in a fit of furious rage because
He's the Gungaga guy, right?
he's what?
The Gungaga guy.
I don't remember. Like,
The me Gungaga meme thing. Have you seen that?
oh
Or no?
no, I haven't actually.
Oh my god.
Yes, he is. He is. That's the guy from the Megan guy. Exactly, that's him. It's like, you're not supposed to know this character exists within this story. Like, he got his own game, right? Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core, he gets his own game.
That's what I'm thinking of. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
he gets his own game, Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core, right? But that's not Final Fantasy VII Original, which you're remaking, right? So as far as people know, he doesn't exist in the lexicon of Final Fantasy VII, right?
Right.
Except for the fucking fact that they show him directly. And I'm just so, like, and here's the thing. They don't show him at the beginning. They don't show him in the middle. You think that you're avoiding it pretty well. You think that, like, when I was playing the game and I'm going through it, so my first problem, like, that's a problem I have later on in the game. If I'm going chronologically, my problems with the main characters, Tifa, Cloud, Barrett, like, ironically, Barrett is probably the best translated one because he's like fundamentally just like kind of a racist caricature, right? Like, he's a racist caricature because, like, okay, in the English dub, in the Japanese dub, they do him way better. In the English dub, I swear, that's like maybe one of the most racist things I've like had the pleasure of listening to, if you could call it pleasure. Like, it was kind of like a sick thing where I'm like, yep, we Americans are still so racist, despite the fact that like Asia is like fundamentally racist by the fact that black people like didn't exist in our societies, right? Like, it was just like, oh my god, hearing
was it writing or voice acting?
both.
Or
It was
both.
both.
Oh, okay.
It was both. It was just like I mean, I'm just gonna do my impression of the voice actor, so it's not like, again, like, you have to remember, this is me trying to show you how racist this is, okay? Like, full disclaimer, I think this is very racist, and I'm showing you how racist I think it is. He just goes like, man, Cloud, what the hell? Like, don't you see, like, you know, it's like literally,
What the fuck?
yeah, it's like literally some fucking like minstrel show shit where it's like literally some
That's
80s
horrible.
blaxploitation like fucking garbage, right? Like, that's the English voice that they decide to use for him, and he goes on things, it's like, can't you hear the mother earth crying? And it's like, what the fuck is this, dude? And in the Japanese version, he just sounds like an angry Japanese man, right? They don't like the classic black person is Mr. T. Exactly. Yeah, exactly that. It's like, and in the Japanese one, he is just an aggressive, beefed out Japanese man. Like, you know, or like, you know, and like just, you know, it's normal. I've watched enough anime to know that they would use that same fucking voice for just some beef-caked out white-looking guy, some beef-caked out Asian-looking guy, or some fucking alien, right? Like, it's more about, it's like, it's the voice that you use for the character, right?
Yeah.
It's the voice that you use for a character that is headstrong, that is aggressive, and that is, like, very passionate, right? He's just beat Takashi in the Japanese version. Yeah, like, exactly. Takeshi, sorry, yeah. Like, it's just normal. So thank God I switched to Japanese voice, because I'm like, I feel implicitly racist, like, hearing this, like, and like having
being in the same room.
Yeah, like, it was just really, and it's also just like laughable that it's like I can't take the game seriously like that.
Yeah.
So anyway, so like I said, ironically he's best translated, but then when you play the Japanese version, he's like pretty well translated at the beginning, but then it like falls apart really quickly again because of what they put the characters through. So my big thing is that they did a great job making the side characters more important because they had to fill so much extra time, right? Like adding side quests and adding side stories that never existed in the first one, but that very thematically fit into it. For example, so the three characters are Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge, right? Those are the Avalanche members. And so
I know Jesse is the one I like.
Jesse.
I know nothing about Jesse besides
they did her so good in terms of like her personality and her screen time. Like, it's great. She's great. She's like actually the new wife. But with Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge, basically they make them into real characters with personality traits, and then they have like things that they want you to do, and then like some of the missions are centered around them. You like visit Jesse's family in order to steal a identity card, and then you're breaking into like a warehouse to steal explosives. These are the same explosives that you use to blow up like the reactors. So it's like, hey, yeah, we didn't know how they got the explosives in the original game. They never talk about that except that they made them. But now it's like that makes total sense to have a mission where they're stealing the materials to make explosives. Like, yeah, that actually is just fundamentally makes sense. Your domestic character. Yeah, but so like that was good, and then you like interact with these characters in a way that feels like feels organic, right? It's like, but then again, it gets ruined by Cloud being like Mr. Edgemeister McGee, right? It's just like, oh yeah, we love you, Cloud. Like, you're just an edgy emo guy, not like, man, like we think you're really cool, but like you also weird us out because like, or like we're kind of obsessed with you because you're like beyond aloof. You know what I mean? Like, it's really like, because that's a like being emotionally detached is like
the Sasuke archetype.
Exactly, like being emotionally attached is like an attractive thing to some people because it's so strange and outlandish. You know what I mean? It's like it makes you, it like mystifies you. It makes you a man of mystery. Being just like a little like whiny punk is not mysterious in any way. You're just a bitch. Like, and that's like what Cloud is like the whole time. He's like, I'm not gonna give you a high five. Like, Like, it's like, dude, what the fuck? Like, you can't even give a thumbs up? Like, I'm not gonna give you a thumbs up.
Wait, I was playing Netplay, and the Falco just lasered me once, fell off the stage by accident, and immediately disconnected.
Oh, dude, I have played some absolute fucking salt lords. I shine spiked this Mark twice, and then he insta rage quit, and then like, but like not from the lobby. Then we played again.
He's back.
Yeah, and then he played again, and then he insta like killed me like twice because, you know, he did like Mar things where he like throws you at the edge, and then he like gets the edge guard, and it's like, and then it's like, and I didn't rage quit because I'm a bitch, and then I still won. After that, and then I kept just beating up on him, and then eventually he just picked Ice Climbers, and then he like took the first stock and then taunted and then insta rage quit the entire lobby. I'm like, what's wrong with you? And it turns out I asked the NY melee chat, does anybody know who it is? He made a Reddit post. This guy made a Reddit post trying to talk about how he styled on someone, and someone's like, hey, aren't you the bitch that rage quit on me after I shine spiked you twice? Like the same exact scenario. And then like, because you couldn't take it, and then someone's like, oh, I've also played him, and then the guy was like, no, because yours is like a bitch move or something like that, and everyone was just shitting on him. Everyone was just shitting. It was so funny. I'm like, I feel so good about that. But anyway, so back to the rant. So Cloud is just like a whiny bitch the whole time, and then because like all the dialogue they give Tifa, like the way that they're like, okay, we know you guys want to see Tifa because not only is she hot, but she was an important character that was a strong female role model. Okay, let's not forget that part. It's not like, I get it to the weeaboos, I get it to you weebs, and to like the fucking like.
What do you mean you we? Who do you think you're talking to?
I say a general. It's the royal you, as in everyone in the weeb. Like,
I do consider myself a royal me, I'll be honest.
and like, so I do understand that like weebs in general, like they're like, you know, there's a lot of like hypersexualization, over sexualization. That's like all they focus on for like the male demographic of like otaku culture, right? Like,
Right.
so it's like they're not so concerned with the fact that Tifa is a dynamic character that is a strong female role model and is a strong like archetype for like powerful female figure, an independent female figure. They just see like martial artists with big tits, right? That's like all they see, like fit woman with big tits, like that's all they see. And basically that's what like Square Enix like feels like they're leaning into that. It's like, hey, look how hot she is now, but and it's like, oh yeah, like you guys don't care about personality and like you're playing mostly as Cloud, so let's just have her like obsess over Cloud the whole time. She's like,
no.
So she like shows you around the slums and she like goes on missions with you and she like inserts herself and stuff and she's like, oh, like come on guys, like give Cloud a break. It's like, oh, I missed you, Cloud. It's like, bro, like you didn't, like you do miss him, but like the point was you missed Cloud, not hollow shell of a fucking PTSD soldier that came back, you know what I mean? Like,
right,
like, oh my god, it was so bad. And then like, and Cloud in the remake has these constant like flashbacks, and like that's kind of like what annoys me. He like constantly has this thing where it has like this effect where it's like radio noise, you know, it's like you know, like that effect, and then like things go kind of like CRT like in terms of color saturation, and then he's like holding his head, he's like, ugh. He like has those a bunch, and like the thing is that it's annoying that he has those because a lot of them are memories that he's like not supposed to have at that time. Like a big part of it is that his traumas have like overwritten his memories, right? Like he has like struggling to remember things from his past, and that's also why he like doesn't have an identity, right? But then he has like a very clear identity in 7, and then he just has these like flashbacks, and he's like, they're like inconsequential to him because they like actually now no longer have an effect on like why he is the way he is. So then they just seem out of place, right? Because like he did have some flashbacks, if I recall correctly, in the original. Yeah. So disclaimer, have not played Final Fantasy VII original in many years, but all of this is off the dome from what I remember, but I guarantee you it's going to be like 99% correct, so you can all fuck yourselves if you're going to argue with me. Like,
yeah.
anybody that sees this clip and argues with me, I guarantee you go back and play it and you'll see what I'm saying. But basically, fucking so that's the setup for those 3 main characters. Then you have the side characters. There are much more characters. I like that a lot more. Super good. Much better. So as you progress, and then also, so I mean, everybody, like, again, even though everybody knows this, you should still give it the respect it has. But we all know Aerith dies, right? Like Aerith is a character that dies.
Wait a minute. No,
fuck you. Aerith is the character that dies, right? So because she did not get to appear in Advent Children all that much, she gets to have a brand new translated personality, which is also why she's one of the better characters in the game. They did.
I was about to ask, like, what's Aerith like? She's my favorite.
They did so much justice to her character. She is bubbly, bouncy. She is kind of outlandish in the way she acts because it feels like she's not.
She has like the only thing I know I've seen is like the meme of her with the folding
with the chair, yeah. Like, but it's just that, like, you know, a lot of people have like anxiety and like reservations about things. Like Aerith is just your like kind of like, she seems airhead where it's like nothing matters, she'll just do whatever, but it's all very intentional. She doesn't care. She just only cares about doing the thing that she feels is right without having regrets, and she gets to live that life. And then, like, again, bubbly personality, like kind of smarmy, like just living in the moment kind of person. They did her so well. She's very charming, and it's great. It's really great because it's like what she's supposed to be. Like, it's, again, she's like this character that you run into and she kind of just like drags you along for the ride, but like she's very charismatic, so you like can't, like, you know, that's why you're dragged along. And she just, but she like plays like oh, helpless damsel in distress kind of role, like not in terms of the story, but in terms of like how she's presenting herself to you so that they'll like manipulate you into helping her, you know. It's very, very on brand.
Right.
Let me take a sip.
Did Aerith die in the remake, or is it later on?
So where she dies in the video game original probably like 70-80%. No, maybe like also like, so maybe like 60% of the way through. Maybe 70%, maybe 70-75% of the way through. Again, it's hard because like there's a lot of open world stuff in the original Final Fantasy VII, so really like what's 70% of the game, right? But like I would say probably plot wise maybe like 70-80%. So you're fundamentally not supposed to know that Aerith dies like in this game, right? In this, where this story takes place in Midgar, there is nothing that should tell you that she dies. She is going to be a permanent fixture of this game as far as you know it. And like, I will come back to that later. So basically, she's done really well. Then they make some other side characters that never existed so that there's like more plot points to like drive the story, and they're all really whack and corny. They're really whack and corny. Like, it's just like really reductive in some ways. Some of them, okay, that's not true. Some of them are funny or good, but like there's this one character, his name is like Andrea Rodia, and he runs the Honeybee Inn, which is like, it is a place in Wall Street or sorry, Wall Market of the original, but
in Wall Street.
yeah, no, in Wall Market of the original, but you don't really like go in there or interact with it at all. So in the original, you are raiding like basically like this like pimp's house. He's like a mafia boss pimp guy, and you're raiding his home, but you can only raid it if you like dress like, they have to dress Cloud up as a girl basically. And so the side quest in the original is that you find like the tailor has like lost his will to like make clothes, and then this other guy like is like a good wig maker, but he like doesn't want to make them because he like is uninspired. So then when the guy finds out that you want to cross-dress Cloud, super strong soldier Cloud, as like a hot girl so that the pimp will like take interest in him, like obviously both of them are like, wait, that's amazing. But like the one that makes clothes is what happens, you have to find his son in like the ramen shop or whatever, and then you like get his son to like help convince him to make clothes again, and it's like a whole thing, right? It's like, that's the side quest. It's really short, it's really small, it's really sweet, and it's like characters that like don't matter. Those characters don't exist. Those characters don't exist in the remake. Instead, they make these 3 like officers for this pimp guy, and then you have to like talk to these officers. And then one is this woman that's like clearly like geisha or Chinese influenced, and then she's like Madam M, and then she like gives like massages, and it's like weirdly sexual. But she's like very coy, and she is like obviously very intelligent and like manipulative, so that was like good. And then you have Andrea Rodia, who's the runner of the Honeybee Inn, and they just make him incredibly flamboyant. Like they have like a one-liner where he's like, who cares about gender, but like they very much so do the classic like Asian thing where like homosexuality or like non-heterosexuality is like a spectacle. You know what I mean? It's like, this is like abnormal. It is a spectacle. Like, this is to be laughed at. This is to be ridiculous. And like, I didn't like that either. Like, don't put the character in like that then. Like, just don't make that character.
Yeah.
So like, that was like a thing that happened. And I think his character could have been good, but I don't like it. And then same thing, like they have these like flamboyant like workout people. So there's mini game where you challenge people to like sit-ups or like pull-ups and stuff, and you can get rewards for it. These are like these little mini games, and they're also like oddly flamboyant. And again, it's the same thing where it's like they're a spectacle. They're not like they can't just be like bodybuilders that are like non-heteronormative. They're just, you know, like they're supposed to be ridiculous, and you're supposed to be like, wow, that's weird. And it's like, I don't like that at all. So that was like a problem that I had with it. And again, like these characters don't have to exist. They don't add anything to the story. So then I feel like the story is just getting derailed, so I can like make fun of non-heteronormative people. Like, that's terrible.
Yeah.
So then you do the whole thing where like you go through the story, and then actually I missed a step that really pisses me off. So when you meet Aerith, basically there's these fucking things that look like Dementors from Harry Potter. They look like fucking ring wraiths just floating through the air, and they have this was not in the original game. Okay?
What the fuck is happening?
This was not in the original game. Just randomly these fucking Dementors and ring wraiths just show up out of nowhere, and they're just like, and they just like randomly show up at points of the game and just fuck shit up, and you just like you sometimes fight them, and you just can't do anything about them, right?
What?
And then like you do that, and then it's like, what the fuck? Like, what are they doing here? Like, why? What is this? And then you learn that they are fate. They're destiny. That's what they are. They're embodiments of destiny. They will not allow things that are not determined by fate to exist. And it's like, what the fuck is this? Because
What does that even mean?
that was never even a thing in the original. There was nothing about, the only thing about Fate and Destiny is that like some people believe that the world should end and some people didn't, right? Like that's about it. And then it's like that, like it's Destiny for like the people who originally were on the earth to re-inherit it or whatever. Like that's it. That's literally it. And everything is about these people's choices.
No Dementors.
Yeah, it's the like the whole theme is original is it's these people making choices that change the world, right?
It's so bizarre.
So the way you find that out is so basically like I could forgive that plot device because you don't know that they're that until towards the last segment of the game, which is by far the worst plot and written segment of the game. Everything is maybe like you could write off as poor updating and translating of the original / like a struggle to have like fleshed out the parts that needed to be fleshed out due to the fact that you're trying to make the first 10-20% a full game. Like it wasn't so egregious. It actually wasn't so egregious for probably like the first 20, maybe even like 30 hours of the game. Right? Like basically like I'm talking majority of the game, like it's like stupid, but it's like, okay, these are like stupid JRPG tropes and like stupid cultural like monoliths that like still exist. So like understandable, right? Like there's still like a bit of like homophobia and like anti-heteronormativity in like Asian cultures, so it's understandable that it like exists in the game made by like an Asian company, right? Like I can write that off in the sense that like it's not that I write it off and accept it, it's that I don't like it but I know why it's there. It's not like fallibility from like a narrative writing standpoint, it's fallibility from like a cultural standpoint, which is like far more systemic. But then you get to the end part of the game, which is when you raid the Shinra HQ to go rescue Aerith, and just everything just goes fucking bonkers in the worst possible way. So in the original Final Fantasy VII, you don't fucking ever see Sephiroth except in a single flashback. In a single flashback where it's like his iconic scene where it's Sephiroth and it's just black and there's fire and he turns around and smiles. Right? Like that's the iconic scene. That's it. That's all you see of Sephiroth. And it can maybe you see like his small sprite standing in front of like a test tube. Okay, for all of you who are gonna nitpick that bullshit. Yes, okay, I do remember. Yeah, I do remember the Nibelheim flashback. You can eat my ass. Like, basically, what time do they close? Okay, cool. This will probably be done within the next 30 minutes in terms of my rant because there's certain things that I can't explain without people having played it and being well, I mean the original one took an hour and a half, so basically you there are so many flashbacks and so many like hints that like, hey, Sephiroth's here, to the point where like in the Shinra raid, like one of like the fucking Shinra goons sees Sephiroth and like in the meeting is like, guys, Sephiroth is here, and they're like, that's dumb, he's not here. And it's like, I hate how direct this is. He is literally supposed to be a boogeyman, right? Like he is literally supposed to be a thing that like doesn't exist and is like a point of trauma and contention for the character, and that's why he's a boogeyman, because he's not there. And then the final scene in the original is that you see his sword impaling the CEO of the corporation, and you're like, holy shit, that must mean he's back, but we don't have any proof, but holy shit. It's not that we didn't want to kill this guy too, but holy shit, right? Like, but why is this happening?
To it before you did.
Yeah, like why is this happening, right? Like, so for I know this doesn't make any sense, right? So but in the remake, you go through the assault, and first you meet Red 13, who is the red dog character, Nanaki. And in the original, you don't know who he is, and what happens is that Hojo, the scientist guy, is like really perverse, and he wants to force Red 13 and Aerith to breed to create like a super mutant thing. Yeah, it's like really fucked up, and that's why you really want to get there and stop that, right?
Right.
So in the original, you get there, and Hojo's like, nope, I'm not gonna open the thing. Like, they're stuck in there together and you can't do anything about it. Even if you kill me, you can't get her out, and I'll kill them. Like, I'll kill them, right? And you're like trapped there. But then Red 13 pretends to want to like attack Aerith. Like, he starts growling and like making it like he's gonna attack and kill Aerith. So then Hojo's like, oh shit, I can't let that happen. So then he goes and opens the thing, and then Red 13 attacks Hojo, giving you the time to break out Aerith. Hojo escapes, and then because Red 13 attacked Hojo and you saw that he was like not trying to attack Aerith, you're like, oh, okay, dope, like you could be a friend, or you're like very likely a friend. And then you learn that he talks and stuff, and then you find out why he talks like later, like it makes sense or whatever, right? But but in the remake, you fight like some abomination, and then you just like save Aerith, and then Red 13 just gets let out of some like fucking pod somewhere else, like just somewhere else, and then he just like shows up and then just tries to attack Hojo, and then like Hojo gets away, and then they're like Red 13, like Aerith is like, no, he's not an enemy, he's a friend, and then like she touches him, and then he's like, you know, and then like those fucking like ghosties show up that stop you from like chasing Hojo, and then like Red 13 is like, their destiny. That's where you learn that these fucking dementors are like destiny. Tifa's like destiny, like with a capital D. Like it's like, holy shit, like Tifa is not some brain dead fucking moron. Like like Jesus Christ, like what do you think he said? And then also he's like, I learned it when Aerith touched my head. It's like, what the fuck is going on? And then like, so then basically they just start like adding a ton of Deus Ex Machinas that like make no sense. And then like so then Red 13, first of all, doesn't become a party member. They just like, oh, in this game, Red 13 is not going to join your party, but he'll like fight alongside you because, you know, we didn't want to program it.
Amazing.
So then like you, so you do that, and then you go all the way to the top floor, right, or whatever. You chase out Hojo, and then you get to the top floor where you're going to find the Shinra president. And then instead of him being dead when you get there, he's hanging off the ledge. And then Barrett has a whole thing where he's like, I should kill you. And then he like they're like, Barrett, no, don't do it. Meanwhile, like your whole goal of this was like to save Plan A, save Aerith, and Plan point 2 is kill that guy. Like that's like literally you have very much so explained that this is part of your MO.
Right.
And or at least like make him like atone, like, you know, like make him fix the shit that he did. So then like he goes and like has this whole, they both have their whole soliloquies, and then Barrett throws him back onto the floor, and then the guy crawls to his desk and pulls out a gun and then points a gun at Barrett. Again, this never has happened. Like, I don't know what the fuck the point of this is. And the guy's like, you're just the same as me, and now I just take what I want, so I'm gonna kill you. And then Sephiroth kills him. So all of you now see Sephiroth in the flesh impaling the Shinra president. Again, he's supposed to be a boogeyman. He's supposed to be a monolith that's just like a trauma monolith. Like, and then Sephiroth just like smiles, and then he stabs Barrett. Okay.
Wait, what?
And Barrett dies. Okay.
What?
Yes. So if you weren't blown away by the first part, I'm fucking blown away by the second part. And they're like, Barrett, no! And then like Sephiroth runs away, and then like Cloud chases him, and then there's like a whole cutscene where then like Sephiroth transforms into like a former Genova experiment, and then you fight a fucking tentacle monster. Not even joking, you fight a tentacle monster, it shoots out tentacles, and you have to kill the tentacles. They're called tentacle A, B, C, and D. And then like you have to fight a tentacle monster, and then you beat the tentacle monster because it's Genova's aspect, which again is ridiculous. It's ludicrous. You don't fight, like, that just doesn't happen. The only tentacle monster you fight in like fucking Final Fantasy VII Original is a fucking experiment, and it's more like an abomination than a fucking tentacle monster. It just happens to have a tentacly appendage, right? It doesn't literally have tentacles A, B, C, and D. So you do that fight, then you have a cutscene, then it's like, look, it's not that, it's Sephiroth. And it's basically, this was makes me so mad, it's basically pulling from Advent Children. Because in Advent Children, everyone who has these Genova cells, which is like this mysterious alien being, and these cells were used to like experiment on humans to create the new wave of soldiers and stuff like that. Most of them were failures. Sephiroth was not, and Cloud was not. Those are the two people that were not failures. And so it turns out that all the failures are just like basically like zombies. They're like in pain all the time. In Advent Children, anybody that has this thing called the geostigma, which is some fucking black fucking tar on your arm, and then you just clutch it in pain a bunch of times. Like, that's it. That's fucking Advent Children. Welcome. That's the whole plot of the movie. And then fucking basically Cloud does the same thing where he like clutches his arm or whatever. God, I hate that so much. And then like basically it's showing that like, oh, like Sephiroth is just like possessing these people, some shit like that. It's like, what the fuck? And then like, because the whole time he has like, oh, I forgot, Sephiroth shows up earlier than that to stop you from progressing to get to Hojo in the first place, because Sephiroth goes and gets Jenova's body from experimentation, which is canon. You just don't see it, you just know what Jenova is, and you know that she was stolen away. But he literally cuts the ground from beneath your feet and then you fall through or whatever. Then you get to the top. My bad. I forgot that you literally fucking make eye contact with him and everyone sees him now. Like, before he seemed to be some figment of Cloud's imagination or something, and you're like, okay, I can see why they're doing this. Like, they're just trying to give you a visual cue for his trauma, like, to make you say, hey, Cloud is hallucinating him. Like, he's not there. And then, no, he's there and he cuts the whole thing and everyone's like, holy shit, isn't that Sephiroth? And Cloud's like, ah! Like, fucking, like, Eric Andre, like, ah! And so yeah, so basically like he shows up, then he has a thing, and then like basically like the Jenova experiment guy jumps off the roof with Jenova's body. You're like, holy shit. Then the plot progresses some more, and then you do the thing where you escape on your motor. Like, there's a whole motorcycle escape scene from Shinra HQ. That's pretty dope. And you fight Rufus Shinra, the new president, the son of the president. And yeah, there's all that. That's fine. Very cool fight. It was good. Like, again, mechanics are good. And he flies away. That's normal. Yeah, that's not abnormal. That one is like in the thing. What was abnormal is every single fucking thing that happened before it. But prior to you fighting him, so you defeat like this aspect of Jenova or whatever, right? The fucking tentacle monster. Then you come back and Barrett is still dead. Okay, like Barrett's dead. There's just no way to like circumvent this happen. And you know what happens? You come back and you go over to Barrett, and a little fucking Dementor just goes and like sucks him off or something, and then he just goes and
he comes back to life,
and he comes back to life. Then they're like, Barrett, are you okay? And it's like, out of all the questions that could be asked in this moment, out of all the things that you all saw of him literally getting run through by a fucking 10-foot sword and literally dying, like you saw him breathe his last breath and die. Now a Dementor goes in and sucks him off, and then he's alive again, and you ask him, are you okay? And he just goes, and he just clutches his chest where he was like stabbed. He's like, yeah, I guess so. And then he like looks at the Dementor thing. He's like, thanks this time, I guess. And then it just looks at him and then flies away.
Wait, like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I'm like, I am having a fever dream right now. Like, this is like some fucking, this is like the shittiest fanfic rewriting of all time. Like, this is some fucking Sonic fanfic writer, like, got their hands on the Final Fantasy VII IP and like decided to like put together a story or something. And like
initially I was like when you said like, oh, and then Barrett died, I was like, wow, that's like, it's interesting for people that like, for example, like already have played Final Fantasy VII or whatever, right? And like think they know everything that's gonna happen, and it's like a different character in your party died. I was like, oh, that's like, it's not told well at all, but like that's fucking
right. It would be interesting if they actually were going an entirely different direction.
Right, where it's like, oh, you think you know the story? Okay, well, we'll literally remake, like, you have no idea what's gonna happen right now. I was like, oh, okay, man. And they're like, no. Actually, that interesting idea, throw that one out.
Yeah. Throw that one out.
Back to life.
Yeah, we just throw that one out. Just go back to the original, but like a shittier retelling of the original. Like,
I don't understand why they would like do a really risky thing like that and then be like, whoa. Just kidding.
Yeah. Like, oh my god, it was so bad. So then you do the whole thing where you escape from the HQ, and that's like cool, fine. And then the HQ scene ends as you're leaving, as you're literally about to you're about to get blown up by a helicopter, and guess who comes back? The Dementors, baby. The Dementors just surround your fucking motorcycle and car and block a helicopter from literally exploding you all to smithereens, and you're all like, oh, I guess it wasn't our time. And it's like, I hate you. I hate all of you. I hate every single one of you. Even you, Tifa. I especially hate what they've done to you. Like, so then you just stop in the middle of the highway during your escape. Why? Because you see Sephiroth's floating fucking body just floating in the air looking at you. And then he gently floats down on the highway, and you walk through the fucking Easy Pass booth and you confront him. And Air's just like, he's wrong. he's just wrong. Something's wrong with him, right? And Sephiroth is like cutting up the Dementors. They're not supposed to be cut up. He's like cutting up. He's like, no, don't do it. Then he like opens like a fucking Rick and Morty portal with his sword. I'm not even kidding. He like cuts the air, and then a fucking portal like with a circular portal opens up with some particle effects. And then like he goes there and he goes like, he's like, come then if you're willing to face me. Yeah, Josh. Yeah. It's like, and then so basically he walks through, and then Aerith like stops you because Cloud's about to go. She's like, no. And he's like, what? And she's like, if we go through there, there's no telling if we come back. Like, there's no turning back. Like, everything is going to be different once we go through. And then like she's like, but we have to stop him. And he's like, then why did you stop me? She's like, I don't know, it was just so uncertain. And it's like, well, but we have to face fate. Like, that's what we have to get through first. And then like everyone has their whole thing of like, yeah, we got to do it. Yeah, I'm in. And then you like go through, and then you just go through the portal, and then you're just like on the same highway, right? And I'm like, oh, okay, like it's like, that's like a MacGuffin, right? Like, that's just like it's a red herring. That was like a red herring. I'm like, cool, like that's good. Nope, not a red herring. Because then you turn around, and then there's some fucking like, again, like some Doctor Strange sky portal shit, and then fucking like fate, these Dementors form some giant eldritch Dark Souls beast. Like, it forms a giant, yeah, and they're like, we have to defeat it so that we can seize our future, right? And then like he starts like, I don't know, like sucking up all the ground and shit like that, and then it's just like some Doctor Strange bullshit, and then you like fight a bunch of like aspects. So it's like, what are these specters? So just to be clear, these Dementor shits were not in the original FF7. That is correct. All of this is now completely off the beaten path. There is not a single thing about this that was in the original. Okay? Like this, even from the middling parts of the game in the beginning of the game where they show up, they were not there. There's no mention of them. They do not drive the plot. Like when you escape, you don't escape. Yeah, no, you aren't losing your guy, man. They're not in the original. Like when you are escaping with Aerith for the first time, like to escape the Turks, you escape because you run away, you know, like a normal human being. But in the remake, you run away and almost get fucking shot down by dudes with machine guns, but the Dementors block the fucking bullets. You know what I'm saying? Like, it is bananas. It makes no sense. So basically now you're fighting the fucking Eldritch Abomination Dementor God guy, right? Because, you know, what would a JRPG be without fighting God? Except you're not supposed to fight God yet. This is the first 10-20% of the game, okay? Like, we don't need to do that. Fighting like a super powerful robot was more than enough at this stage of the game. Like, fighting a robot that's like an unethical killing machine that has like wiped out entire army platoons was more than enough, because like that was still like really big for your small fucking domestic terrorist cell, right? Like, you're just a bunch of like goons that are like fighting for some idealism, and now you're against literal like military industrial killing machine. But no, now we gotta fight God again, except this God is fate, right?
Which is amazing, because then in like another game you're gonna have to fight God in a different structure.
I am not done yet. That's the worst part. We're not done yet. So basically you go, and then there's like specters now. These are like bigger Dementors, one with a sword arm, one with like that's like a mage, and one that has like a gun. Okay, not even kidding. It's like the fucking weapon triangle over here. And it goes, what are they? It's like, those are specters from the future that has not yet happened, and they're protecting their future, so we have to defeat them so we can do our future. It's like, what the fuck are you on? Like, what is this future shit that like the past? It's the fucking ghost of Christmas past and the Christmas that has yet to be. And this guy doesn't like it when we eliminated SantaCon. Okay, so we gotta make sure that we kill him so that we can go and abolish SantaCon. And it's like, Jesus fucking Christ, dude. Like, thank you. It's like, what is wrong with you?
That's maddening.
So you beat them, and each time you defeat one of them, you get hit by a laser beam. And what does that laser beam do? They're like, what is that laser beam? And then you have a bunch of visions, and they're like, this is a vision of futures that have not happened yet or that could happen. And guess what cutscenes they put in these fucking prospective futures? They literally show Aerith's death scene. They literally show Zack FFVIIR, who you're not supposed to know, with Cloud, okay? They literally show Zack FFVIIR with the Buster Sword, which is a huge spoiler. They literally show Sephiroth multiple times, and they literally show, like, different parts of the world that you're going to explore. And oh, also another thing is that they love showing off characters that are supposed to be in the game, but you're not supposed to know yet. So Kate Sith is a character in Final Fantasy VII. He's a cat that, like, or he's an animatronic cat because he's actually supposed to be a Shinra employee that, like, maneuvers the robot. But then it turns out that he's actually might just be a cat. Like, it's like a whole really silly thing, and it's part of, like, the charm of, like, Final Fantasy VII not taking itself too seriously still. He shows up when he's not supposed to, and he just, like, it's when something explodes, and he just shows up out of nowhere and goes like, no. And I'm like, why? That's not fan service. That's just fucking dumb. So basically, in a similar vein, they just show you all these characters that you're not supposed to see yet, right? Except for the important ones, like no Yuffie, no Cid, no Vincent, no nothing. But they show you all these plot-centric characters that you're just not supposed to know about yet. These are all the visions that you have, okay? Like, I cannot believe that I literally see Cloud holding a dead body in the Temple of Ancients. Just because you put some white glow effect over Aerith's dead body doesn't mean we don't know what it is, okay? Like, that's the whole point, is that despite the fact that we know what it is, you're not supposed to show it because you can still make it similarly impactful to a generation that knows the general gist of it, okay? Like, just because you know something happens doesn't mean it doesn't have to be impactful. Like, I knew about it before I played. I did not play Final Fantasy VII when it came out. I knew that happened, and I still cried when it happened. Like, it is insane what you can do when you make a game that's well written, and this is just awful. So they just show you a bunch of shit that you're not supposed to know yet, or not supposed to know in the game at all, as part of these futures that could be. And then, like, or the futures if we fail. It's like, so your implication is either that you changed all the core plot points, or that you've just shown it all, and it's really dumb that you've shown it to all of us. So you end up beating Fate. Okay, great. You kill Fate, allegedly. You're like, we did it. Guess who shows up again? Sephiroth. And then you just have to fight Sephiroth now. And it's like, first of all, you don't fight Sephiroth until the end of Final Fantasy VII Original. And you learn things in that boss fight that were only referred to. Like, they were hinted at, but you, like, fully learn them and understand what kind of being Sephiroth is when you fight him in the final stages of the game, in the final fucking 2 hours, the final boss fight of the game. And what do? They make the boss fight with Sephiroth play out exactly like the final boss fight of the original game. So what do I have?
Why?
What do I have to look forward to? What do I have to look forward to? He literally summons a meteor that's gonna destroy everything. If you fucking don't kill him in time, the game ends. That's it. He literally grows his wing, that angel wing. You know his theme is one-winged angel. You're not supposed to know that. You don't see that. Like, you know that the feathers mean Sephiroth for some reason. That's like his call card, the black feather, but you don't know why that. You don't know all this other bullshit with, like, Sephiroth and Vincent and Anguille and Zack FFVIIR and stuff like that. You don't know any of that shit. And they just show you all of it. So you fight him, and you fight all his stages, and then you beat him, right? You beat him. And then what happens is you think you beat him, and then he fucking Doctor Strange teleports you one more time. You and only Cloud, him and Cloud, are on the fucking moon or something. And you know in Doctor Strange where they show that thing where he's, like, flying through, like, space, and there's, like, fucking Galactus and stuff, it's all green and, like, particle effects. That's what you look at. You look at, like, the fucking Marvel Cinematic Universe in the background, and Cloud and fucking Sephiroth are, like, on the fucking moon. Then they fight a little bit, and then Sephiroth kicks his ass, okay? Cloud just kicked his ass when he was in his final fucking form, and now suddenly Sephiroth just kicks his ass, okay? And then Sephiroth goes, like, join me, Cloud, or whatever. It's like, Cloud's like, no, I'll never join you. And then Cloud's like, Sephiroth's like, in the next 7 seconds, like, you have to make a decision about how this world will end, or something. Stupid shit like that. Like, I don't know, some really stilted, dumb shit. And Cloud's like, what? And then Sephiroth disappears. And then Cloud gets teleported back to his friends, and they're like, did you beat him? He's like, no, he got away. And then
What?
somehow also you're all teleported outside of Midgar. That is like literally not how the fucking Midgar segment ends. The Midgar in the original segment ends because you fucking escape and leave Midgar because it's just too hot for all of you. Like, you're a domestic terrorist cell that has assaulted the Shinra HQ, and they will stop at nothing to execute all of you. Plus, you have to go and chase after like Sephiroth to find like the meaning of what's going on. And you have to, like, you're also still like assaulting other Shinra facilities as part of like the plot, like later, like outside of Midgar, right? Like, this fight is being taken like global, basically. Totally cool, totally normal. Like, again, it's a progression, right? We just took out one of their HQs, let's go take out like the rest of their shit, right? While we also learn about this other looming threat. Nope. You're just teleported out and everybody's like, yep, Sephiroth's the devil, gotta kill him. Who's on board? All of us. Cool, let's go. Let's leave. Okay, we're leaving Midgar. Like, no like closure, no talking about what happened, just like hell-bent on killing Sephiroth, okay? And then as you're leaving, you see the flashback of FFVIIR carrying Cloud's body with the Buster Sword to Midgar, and Aerith looks directly at him and is like, oh. But he's supposed to be a vision, but Aerith has like fucking future sight god powers now, and she just like sees things, which includes FFVIIR and Cloud going to Midgar, and then you just like walk off into the fucking Rainbow Rain, and then the Final Fantasy VII theme plays. Like, it is so disgustingly on the nose, spoilerific, and just horribly constructed. Before I bought and played Final 7 Remake, I saw all the reviews. I saw the Twitter drama. I saw people say that the ending made no sense. It was really disrespectful to the original. It was like horribly written. They added a bunch of MacGuffins that like didn't need to be there. They added things that needed Deus Ex Machinas that were not previously there. And then they added the biggest Deus Ex Machina of all just so you could kill it. And I was like, I think, because historically, JRPG and anime fans are pretty bad at critical analysis.
I was about to say, I was like, if I read that, I'd be like, they don't know what they're talking
exactly.
about.
I am like, you are all so dumb. Like, you are just like, I'm so sad that they didn't just show me more titties and they didn't show me more showed by shonen boys. But I played it and I was like, I can't believe how right every single one of you was.
That would have been the biggest plot twist of that entire game, finding out that like mass critique on this one game is correct.
Yeah, like, I was just blown away at how just deplorable it all played out and how correct it was, and like how good like the rest of it was. You know what I mean? Like, the mechanics, the fights were still good. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the hell out of playing the fight, but I was mad that it existed. I was mad that I had to fight him and that it did in the fashion that it did. Right. So, like, for me, I don't know, man. Like, it was just so.
So where could it even go at this point?
And that's what I mean. I hope they're totally changing the second half somehow. It's either that they're gonna entirely change the plot of Final Fantasy VII, and I know that it's gonna be horribly written. So I still am not happy about that, right?
Right.
But I'd be happier in the sense that you didn't at least like spit and shit on the carcass of the original, right?
Right, because they're doing anything different.
The other thing that I see is that they're gonna say, hey, remember that portal thing? Yeah, that was like just a dream. We were like really fucked up, huh? Like, everything was so crazy and there were like some chemical in the air and like, yeah, oh man, like Hojo's experiments, huh? Wild. Like, there was some poison gas there. Remember that? Like, yeah, we were just hallucinating. Crazy, right? Okay, glad we got that sorted out. Let's go back to the original plot. Like, either way is so horribly written and has like no sense of nuance or like proper writing. I just like am so disgusted. Yeah. So like, yeah, that's pretty much as I want to go into for that. But that's my rant. I do have more to say, but it's just like I gotta talk so much more about other stuff then in terms of like to explain why it's bad. So I'm gonna leave it there. I think I'm also gonna call it for the stream overall, because I have just exhausted the last remnants of my energy. I need to eat, I need to take a nap, and then I could be back later. But I am so done right now because, oh, what an exhausting time. And that was an exhausting experience to go through. Like, as gameplay, what an exhausting experience.
I
Um,
was like, I was